Today we have two amazing, extraordinary leaders whose lives and leadership embody a 50-year legacy of building impact where every child's promise and potential are realized. They represent an organization that has spent 5 decades intentionally building it one scholar, one mentor, and one community at a time. Lynsey Wood Jeffries is the CEO of Higher Achievement, which embodies the power of belief in young people. Her journey began not in the boardroom, but as a volunteer mentor, walking alongside middle school scholars, witnessing their brilliance, and committing her career to ensuring opportunity and equity are not determined by zip code. Since becoming CEO in 2012, she has led Higher Achievement's national impact across 4 states, drawing on her experience in education, affordable housing, racial equity, and community development, including leadership with the Fannie Mae Foundation, the NeighborWorks, and the Kellogg Foundation. So we have 2 today. Joining her, right beside her, is James Morgan, Executive Director of Higher Achievement's DC Metro's office, whose 15-year journey with the organization reflects what long-term investment looks like when you truly allow young people to rise. From shaping the organization's nationally recognized program model to mentoring students, coaching youth in lacrosse, as well as supporting second chances for underserved communities, particularly women in prisons, I believe. James' leadership is rooted in service, discipline, and deep belief in potential. So together, they are helping to write the next chapter in a 50-year story of hope, access, and achievement. So please join me in warmly welcoming Lynsey Wood Jeffries first, as well as
Thank you so much, Mariama. It is such a joy to be with you all this afternoon. I got to meet Mariama through an alum of Higher Achievement, Patrice Howard, who is friends with Mariama, and she is one of our 2 alumni on our board of directors, and she is a superstar. And it feels so powerful to be in this room with all of you in this time of growth and change with the Rotary Club in Washington. I could just feel the electricity, and I'm just so excited for you all. And I have a little bit of a Rotary background myself, and I grew up in small town Pennsylvania, and I got a Rotary Award at high school graduation for my volunteer service for working in homeless shelters in and around my hometown. And volunteer service is actually what led me to ultimately work at Higher Achievement, as Mariama mentioned. When I moved to Washington in 2000, I started as a volunteer mentor, and I mentored for 5 years. And when one of my scholars was accepted to his top choice high school, which is sort of our intermediate goal, it prompted me to come on staff. And I've now been on staff for 20 years. That scholar is now 34 years old. I met him when he was 10. So, clearly time is a warp. And he has an 11-year-old daughter. I am proud to be her godmother. I have a 10-year-old son. My son, Pete, and Amber are very much growing up together. And it's one of the reasons I've stayed involved with this mission for so long, is that we tighten the social fabric across difference. And I can see that happening in this room. And that is so important for the future of society, frankly, that we can understand each other in a deep, deep way. And I will give just a quick overview of some higher achievement history and research. I'll turn it to James. But I wanted to tag one more time to one of my favorite mini stories about higher achievement has to do with one of our scholars in Ward 7 many years ago, Noelle. And I was helping her prepare to speak to the Junior League of Washington on a Saturday morning. And she shows up for our little prep conversation with a little suit and this little tiny purse like this that was looked like there was a block inside of it. And we were talking about what she wanted to do when she grew up. And she's like, you know what I want to do? I want to be a translator for the United Nations.
You hear that, Shelley?
And I said, all right, Noelle, that's great. And she pulls out of her little tiny purse, sparkly pink and purple. Out of this purse comes a dictionary. She said, there are more than enough words in this dictionary that we should not have war across this world. And so I want to be interpreter because I think that's where things are getting mixed up. She went on to be the first in her family to graduate, to go to college. So let's give it up for Noelle. All right, we're gonna start with a question. What percentage of students do you think graduate from high school on time in Washington, DC? Get a hand. Yes.
60%.
A little bit higher than that. That's a good guess, though. It was 68% when I started on staff. 72. Exactly. Well done. Thank you. That is not where we need to be.
Right.
Graduating from high school is a minimum threshold, and it very rarely leads to a livable wage sort of wealth building trajectory for your family. Higher achievement is part of a lever to change that. We close the opportunity gap during the critical middle school years to change that trajectory, and it works. For higher achievement scholars, 95% of them graduate from high school on time, and it's very exceptional. I'm not going to celebrate that 100%, and the last 5% will be the hardest, but that is that we're making a big difference on high school graduation rates, and we also know long term that our scholars are 3 times more likely than their peers to graduate from college, from a 4-year college, within 6 years of finishing high school. That does start to change the trajectory of a family. And so how do we do this? We actually do this by leveraging the power of volunteers and community service. At Higher Achievement, we know that talent is everywhere, in every zip code, in every community, every race, every background. Talent is everywhere, but opportunity is not. And we seek to really close that gap between talent and opportunity. And as I said, we do it during the critical middle school years. Who remembers their middle school years? Or middle school dance? Anyone have a middle school dance memory? I certainly do. Yeah, like it sticks with you. And it is a time when you are developing physically, emotionally, cognitively. It's second only to infancy in the level of brain development that happens. It's early adolescence is when your prefrontal cortex is being developed. It's when you start to become who you will be over time. Your sense of identity, separate and apart from your family, the decisions you make, the peers you decide to hang around with, right? It can start to craft a pattern and a path one way or another. And what we do at Higher Achievement is really make sure we embrace our scholars, put them in a setting where they have positive peers and adults so that they stay on path that leads to post-secondary success. And that is important because of how important that brain development is. And also that 6th grade is this really pivotal year. 6th and 9th grade are actually very pivotal years. The 6th grade ABCs, as the researchers say, attendance in school, behavior in school, and your courses, whether or not you're failing critical courses in 6th grade, are 40% predictive of whether or not you will finish high school on time. Middle school matters. And yet it is a time of dramatic underinvestment in the public schools. You might see a lot of schools, they're trying to solve the middle school problem by either saying, all right, we're going to do a K-8 model, or we're going to do a 6 through 8, or a 7 through 9, or they're trying to solve the challenge of middle school with building structure. It doesn't actually work. What matters is that early adolescence, students during middle school have a positive peer, have an adult outside their family that knows them deeply, shows them that they matter, and keeps showing up for them. And that's where our mentors come into play. This program has been proven by 2 randomized controlled trial studies that show that our program is the reason that our students are doing better. So I don't know how many of you are familiar with randomized controlled trial studies. It is the gold standard of social science research. I have another question. How many of you have a guess of how many nonprofits there are in this country?
1 million. Project Cure.
Over 1 million. Yeah, 1.6 million nonprofits in this country. There are so many nonprofits. Of that 1.6 million, only 2% have undergone this type of rigorous third-party research. And of that 2%, only 10% have gotten positive findings. So even if you go through this crazy rigorous study that's very expensive and time consuming and stressful, there's a 90% chance that you will show null or negative findings. So like the incentives don't really line up to do this kind of research, but we do it because we wanted to know whether or not our program was working. And now twice, this research firm, MDRC, has published these studies that show that higher achievement works as measured by test scores, report card grades, placement in college preparatory high schools, and family engagement in that process. This model, going deep with mentors in middle school, really does make a big difference. And we do that through both the head and the heart. And with that, I want to turn it over to our amazing James.
Thank you, Linda. Thank you, everyone. It's great to be here. As Lynsey said, our approach is simple but profound. We combine the head and the heart. Academic excellence, rigor, mentoring, enrichment, delivered by caring adults who are genuinely invested in the long-term success of the middle schoolers who are in. We operate 3 days out of the week after school, from about 3:30 to 6:30 for 30 weeks throughout the school year. So if you add that up, it works out to about 270 additional hours of academic opportunity. That is academic enrichment, mentoring, high school readiness, college and career exposure. And that does not count all the field trips that we take and the college visits that we take. So when you add those on, we're about 300 hours a year for the middle schoolers who are in our program. Components of our program are learning blocks. Learning blocks are the academic drivers of our program. Scholars have to complete their homework before they go home, and homework needs to be checked for 100% accuracy. They finish their homework early. They are studying for upcoming tests, quizzes. They are working on their high school essays. They are logging onto their school's online platform. They are working in small groups and completing an academic project. This is an incredibly important time, and learning blocks happen each day. We also know that social emotional learning is incredibly important, along with the academics. Scholars need to know how to advocate for themselves. They need to know how to build healthy relationships. They need to know how to take safe risks. These are all things that are embedded and incorporated into our program because this is going to ultimately set them up to be incredibly successful in high school. And then when they walk through the doors of their high school as a ninth grader, we need scholars to be confident and to know that they belong in those high schools. One night a week, we have mentoring. Mentoring is delivered by a volunteer. So a volunteer comes in and they work with a small group of scholars, no more than 4, and they implement what we call our high school readiness curriculum. Scholars join our program in either 5th or 6th grade, and the expectation is that they remain in our program until they graduate as 8th graders. So each year, they follow a different curriculum. The vast majority of our volunteers come in with little to no teaching experience. They are professionals who want to give back and be involved and support young people within their community. They deliver our curriculum, our 6th grade units, focus on community and their surroundings. 7th grade, the scholars start exploring who they are, who they want to be, and then that sets them up for their 8th grade year. So when they are applying to high schools, which is incredibly competitive, incredibly rigorous, and very similar to applying to colleges for what juniors and seniors will go through in high school. You have your neighborhood schools in DC that are DC public schools that you go to by law, but you also have DC public schools that are application-based, called specialized schools. And it requires essays, interviews, and it can be incredibly competitive. So we prepare and set our scholars up to be successful and prepare to go to a high school that is going to be the best fit for them. So a little bit about our scholars. We operate in Title I schools. We are operating in 5 schools in DC, 1 school in Prince George's County. 4 of the 5 schools in Washington, DC are DC public schools. We are operating in wards 5, 7, and 8, and in Greenbelt, Maryland is the one location in Prince George's County. 76% of our scholars are Black, 10% are Latinx, 9% identifies multi-ethnic, and another 9% identifies other. And we know our scholars are diverse and they are beaming with potential. Lynsey mentioned the studies that have been done on our program. We consider ourselves a data-informed and a data-driven program. And just to give you all some data here, 77% of scholars last year earned an A or B in English language arts or improved a full letter grade. 75% of scholars earned an A or B or math. We track English language arts and math incredibly closely, as they are often the strongest predictors of high school success. Also, 91% of our scholars last year were enrolled into a top performing high school. Our scholars are 4 times less likely to be chronically absent from school. There's a study that came out 2 years ago. 69% of all ninth graders in DC were considered chronically absent. So showing up is incredibly important. And again, the importance of the confidence and knowing you belong in that high school starts in 6th grade at higher achievement. And we build that mindset very intentionally and thoughtfully. Lynsey kicked things off with a question. 72% of students in Washington, D.C. graduate high school on time. 95% of scholars who come through our program graduate high school in time, on time. So that is a data point we are incredibly proud of. Future of higher achievement, we want to serve more scholars. Right now, we are serving about 300 scholars across our 6 sites. We want about 50 scholars at each location, but always looking to increase our footprint in the city. Our high school transition work. Scholars graduate as 8th graders. A component of our program we are involving and investing in is how do we support this 9th grade transition. This summer, we are going to be hosting a 3-day, 2-night, overnight experience for scholars called our 9th grade retreat, where they will hear from high school teachers will come in and teach mock classes. We will lead programming all around to designed to get them prepared for high school. Think of it as a high school boot camp. So this is a component of our program that is evolving. And then something I think about on a daily basis is how can we partner with other organizations, so many amazing nonprofits in the city. How can we strategically partner and combine our efforts to support young people? Investing in young people has never been more important than it is right now. Over 90% of scholars in our program feel a sense of belonging in higher achievement. Higher achievement matters to them. That is not the case for students who are not in higher achievement. The data point is up there, but it's slipping my mind right now. I think it's 20% of middle schoolers don't feel connected to their school. Mental health is on the rise. Scholars feel an incredible amount of academic pressure, the influences of social media, this AI divide that is going to impact people who are marginalized the most, and people from under-resourced communities will be impacted the most by this, by AI. So investing in middle school has never been more important than it is now. I like to end things with this quote from a former scholar of mine. I may have to walk over to the screen if you don't mind, because the font here is a little small.
Work the crowd.
Thank you, Donnie. Appreciate that. So I ran a center in Ward 4 for a number of years, and there was a scholar that was accepted into the program. Her name was Mahabuba, and she had recently immigrated to the United States from Ethiopia. She was incredibly kind, caring, worked incredibly hard, shy, introverted, and was learning to speak English. And she was in the program for a few years, and I knew her as Mahabuba Hassan. And then she went to a different school, and she wasn't able to continue in the program, but she was in the program for a number of years. And I would often think about Mahabuba, and every now and then I would look her up, I would Google her, I couldn't find anything. And then 2 years ago, I get this email from her through LinkedIn, and it says, "My name is Mahabuba Hassan. You might remember me from Brightwood Elementary School, where I was involved in the Higher Achievement Program. Although I couldn't finish the program due to my family relocating, it laid the foundation for my subsequent educational journey. I attended Lincoln Middle School and then Capital City Charter School, and I'm now in my third year at Augsburg University, set to graduate with degrees in Management Information Systems and International Business. I wanted to share how pivotal higher achievement was in shaping who I am today. It instilled in me the importance of academic excellence and provided significant support along the way. I also remember volunteering and earning my volunteer hours under the program's guidance, which taught me a number of valuable lessons. Your influence and the opportunities provided through the program have been transformative for me. Thank you. As you can imagine, it made my day, made my week, made my month. Here I am 2 years later, and I'm still talking about it. Actually, Mahabub and I exchanged emails the other day. She changed her last name. She changed her last name from Hassan to Omar. So that's why I wasn't able to find her when I was Googling her for all these years. But this email, I think, encapsulates what we do so well at Higher Achievement. So I wanted to share that. A number of ways to get involved. Volunteering. We're always looking for volunteers. These can be one-time volunteers or something more consistent like a mentor, which Lynsey mentioned. Fundraising support. We have our annual Going Places event. Mariama attended last November. It was an incredible night. Donating as a nonprofit. We're always keeping our eye out for opportunities, and financial support always goes a long way. Visiting centers, if you'd ever like to see programming in action, take a tour of center. I would love to host you all. And then field trip connections, taking scholars outside of our centers, especially days when DCPS schools are closed and it's not a federal holiday. Incredible opportunities to get scholars out into the community. And we visit architecture firms, law firms, catering businesses. I mean, you name it, we want to take scholars there because at the end of the day, opportunities are everything. So we want to expose scholars to everything that this amazing city has to offer. Thank you all.
Thank you. That was awesome. I would like to know what formal relationship you have with schools and with parents, because schools can be sensitive about how they approach education, how they approach pedagogy, and parents can be concerned about addressing the issue of who are you, and there might be some tension in the family. So I'm just wondering how you cope with those two challenges.
It's a great question. I can kick things off. So we want to be at schools where principals value after school opportunities. 3:30 to 6:30 is an incredibly important time in a young person's life. And for the most part, all the schools that we are operating out of, principals see the value of higher achievement. So we are often sought after. So principals want us in the school. So forming that partnership, we're right off the bat, we're starting on a good note. And the city is investing in after school like I've never seen before. I've been with Higher Achievement for 15 years. So there is a lot of support and effort that's led by not only the mayor's office, but also DCPS in ensuring that young people have more opportunities from 3:30 to 6:30. So it's great that there is this groundswell of support for programs like Higher Achievement. So we oftentimes have a tremendous amount of support from principals. And then from families, so when we present how you get into our program, we want to present to families or students, but we need that investment from families. Family engagement is incredibly important. And if we present to students and students raise their hand and they say, I want to be in Higher Achievement, we get their contact information, we call home, we talk to families about who we are, what we do, and getting their investment is something that we know that we have to do, and we have to engage them throughout the year too. We have events. We're inviting families during the summer. We have individual meetings with every scholar and their parent to talk about. We reflect on the year. We talk about the upcoming year. We set goals. So we know we need their investment, because if we don't have the parental investment, it does make things a little bit harder. It's a great question.
Thank you.
Looking at what you're doing, what are you doing and how you're structuring your internships? I'm on the board at Longwood University, and we started the first in the country mandatory. You could not graduate without an internship, and our success rate went almost to 100% in about 3 years through that. So I just wonder what you're doing as far as internships, what kind you have, and what are you looking for as far as internships? Thank you. Great presentation.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
So it was great to know about the connection with Longwood University. We used to have a partnership with Longwood University because we're also in Richmond, Virginia, and Longwood is close there, right? Where we had students from Longwood engaged with us year round. I can't remember the specifics of it. It was maybe 8 or 10 years ago. would love to reopen that conversation. We don't have a formal internship program, but it is something that is, we do seek strong university partnerships and we are building them up in and around the cities where we operate.
If you're meeting from 3:30 to 6 every afternoon, does that mean that you're excluding interscholastic athletes?
No,
There you go.
we are not. We make sure that we are flexible to make sure students can be both scholars and athletes. The one part of the week that students have to attend to make sure they stay with the program is mentoring. That's like the centerpiece of the model, that it usually it works such that they can be athletes and be scholars.
My PhD is actually in music, piano performance, and I didn't really hear any, not recognition of anything about, in the art world and in the music world. I'm deeply affiliated with George Mason University, as my doctorate is from there. So do you guys have a branch or, to help guide high achiever, high schoolers go through that route and get, become successful more in whatever they choose to be instead of just I heard athlete and politics and everything, not so much arts.
The arts are incredibly important to us, and I know that they're also incredibly important to Lynsey and myself. We are an academic program, but we know we need to create opportunities within our program model for scholars to explore other outlets. And these are called electives. So these are enrichment opportunities. So we partner with a number of organizations to come in either once or twice a week, and they offer electives. So scholars will sign up for an elective at the beginning of the semester, and they will participate in that elective opportunity for the duration of the semester. New semester comes, they will have an opportunity to select a different elective for that semester. We have cooking, we have music, we have art, we have dance, we have capoeira, journalism, robotics, STEM, a whole number of opportunities that we provide scholars through the electives that take place within our programs.
Really fast. Also in the high school placement process, we work very closely one-on-one with our scholars and their families. And if their interests are the arts, we know what the process is to get into Duke Ellington School of the Arts, and we coach them in that. We help them with their audition. I mean, we are not musicians. Our program is not a music program, but it's about making sure students are set up for success in whatever they choose. Also, the field trips are key. Just a few months ago, we had this awesome social justice oriented day at the Phillips Collection. So again, if you all have connections, those are the kinds of things that we are often setting up.
You may have covered this before, but I want to know what your strategy is for convincing the students to participate in your program, because the attitude of a lot of junior high school and middle schoolers is they don't want more school. So what is it that you do to make it enticing?
Well, we try to make it not feel like more school, first of all. And something we've always said, and I think is still true, although I'm getting pretty old, is that we try to make it cool to be smart at higher achievement. So students are thirsty for that sense of belonging, as James said, and having similarly curious sort of peers and friends around them. But we also market the college trips and the field trips and the electives. So it is a diverse set of.
When I started 15 years ago, someone said to me, it's very cliche, but they said, scholars don't care what you know until they know that you care. And I think that that couldn't be more true. So one of the things that we do is, as mentioned, we invest in the relationship and we prioritize the relationship. So it feels very different than school. We have staff members, both full-time, part-time staff, and we also have college students who volunteer on a daily basis at our program. And middle schoolers, they love working with college students. College students are young, they're hip, they're cool. They oftentimes watch the same shows or listen to the same music. So these relationships are absolutely paramount in higher achievement and are certainly the foundation for much of our success.
Give him a hand, folks. We're going to plant a tree in your honor. Yes. And our committee chair, Bill Dent, who's hanging out in Brazil somewhere with the trees, he'll be back in town, and there'll be a time when we're going to ask you folks to come down here, the tidal basin, if I'm correct, and we're going to honor you guys. All right?
Can I touch it? Sorry. I know Bill Dent. Because in 2009, Higher Achievement painted a mural with Michelle Obama and 50 congressional spouses, and Bill Dent helped us plant a monarch butterfly garden at a DC public school. That's all the coolest. I didn't know him.
That's him. Yeah, that's him. He's tall like a tree too. That's him.